Hi everybody, Lori here for Concord Ninth, and welcome to my class, which is called Big and Bold. In the classroom, Big and Bold. And if you have your package of goodies that we're going to use and you haven't opened it yet, we can open it together. If you've already opened it, then you can sit back and watch me open mine. This is very exciting. It's always very fun to open up new goodies, especially when they're by Concord Ninth. Okay, so we have the Big and Bold stamp set. The Big and Bold dies, you actually get two. This big one on the back, kind of a stitched floral, and then a bunch of blooms and foliage. Beautiful package of dewdrops, which are one of my all-time favorite embellishments, and then a bunch of cardstock. We're going to end up making about 4 cards in the Big and Bold class, and then an array of delicious Concord Night solid color cardstock, including the delicious new shades. I'm so excited. So to start off, we're going to make a happy birthday card, and she's a doozy, let me tell you. So we're going to start with a panel of white cardstock. You got some that are for bases, the larger sheets, and there's several little smaller white panels. That's what we're going to start with, a smaller white panel, 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. Now on the back of this stitching floral die, if you flip it over, the back of the die has some lines on it, and those are guides to show you where you can line up a panel of 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 cardstock. It's all the work, all the thought has been done for you. That's what I'm doing here. I'm lining it up with the lines that are on the back of that stitch floral pattern die. I'm going to hold this down with some Easy C pink tape and run this through my die cutting machine. It makes a beautiful kind of subtle stitching floral pattern on your panel. Now, of course, you could do this in a lot of different shades of solid color cardstock. We're doing white here, but for future ideas, you could do it out of green and pink and so forth. And it'll give that beautiful stitched floral pattern. It's a great kind of subtle, neutral background. It doesn't compete, but it gives you a little detail. Now wait till I take off this tape and you'll see. It's really beautiful. I always think that Concord Ninth just knocks it out of the park with their designs. They really do. I say it all the time. In fact, my kids get sick of hearing it, but I always like Concord Ninth. They just know what they're doing. Okay, now we're going to start stamping a few blooms right onto this, stitched floral die cut panel. So I pulled out the Big and Bold stamp set. There's 2 blooms in the stamp set. One is an outline and one is a solid. We're going to be stamping that outline. So I'm going to take that out. I'm using my Misty. That's my preferred method of stamping. If you have a Misty and you want to use it, now's the time. Maybe you just like to stamp with an acrylic block. To each his own. So we're going to stamp this outline bloom with black ink right onto this stitched die cut panel. Okay, and I'm referring, if you look at the back, over onto my left-hand side, that's the back of the die packaging, and it has the card that we're making. So I'm always kind of referring to that, looking at it. And this one here, you know what I should have done is I should have seasoned my stamp since it's brand new. I like to clean them, rub them down with an eraser, and it just makes them stamp better. But I didn't, so I had to stamp that one twice. That's okay. We're moving along. Going to stamp another one. Again, using black ink. Everything that I'm doing here is 100% customizable. If you want to switch it up, use a different color, put it in a different place on the card, you can do that. Very organic, freewheeling. We're just having a good time. Okay, now I'm going to do one up in the top right corner. Just kind of filling in where there were some gaps. But again, you can stamp it wherever you want to stamp it. Now there was another bloom down in the bottom right corner that I actually forgot to stamp. But it doesn't matter in the end. It kind of gets covered up with a leaf die cut anyhow. So it's not really a big deal that I forgot to stamp it. But if you want to go ahead and stamp another one, another bloom should go in that bottom right corner if you want to take the time. Okay, so I'm going to put that outline bloom away. I do try to put things away as I go. Otherwise, I will lose them. Sure as I'm sitting here today, I will lose them. Okay, now we're going to die cut some blooms. using some of that delicious solid color cardstock. There are 3 big blooms in this big and bold die set. So this largest one is going to get die cut out of a gorgeous new color called Dragon Fruit. The middle-sized bloom gets die cut out of 2 shades, Clementine and Sunflower, and then this smaller bloom out of Tide Pool. And then there's these little center dots. I'm just taking all these dies out at once just to get them all out and ready to go. Okay, so we have Dragon Fruit. This color right here wakes you up in the morning. It gets you out of bed in the morning. It gives you a reason to live. It's just so happy, so vibrant, and perfect. Dragon Fruit all the way. Okay, there you got Clementine. And you can see that they are moving on to Clementine, and the old orange color used to be Marmalade, which was much more, I don't even know how to describe it, maybe more vibrant, more in your face, and they wanted something slightly more subtle. By the way, I'm using this chart here that probably came in your packaging, and it has all the colors. And maybe if you don't remember, what is that color called? Which one is Tide Pool and which one is Aqua Sky? Refer to that chart. I do it all the time. There's 2 greens. One is lemongrass and one is avocado. And we're going to die cut 5 leaves out of the avocado. Funny story about avocado that I'll tell you as we get going. Okay, so now what I'm going to do, you don't have to do this. This is optional, but I like to trim everything out. This way I can die cut them all at once. It takes up less room on your die cutting machine. Also, I feel like it helps me kind of conserve that precious cardstock. I don't want it to get bent because I want to be able to use every last sliver of it. So I just quickly kind of trimmed out all those little pieces. I'm going to pull out my Spellbinders Platinum. Whatever type of die cutting machine you prefer to use, now's the time to pull that out. Yeah, I got the Spellbinders. I used to have a Gemini, but I was struggling with that thing. My plates warped like the dickens, and it was so loud. At the end of the day, I like a manual. I don't know, maybe one of these days everybody talks about that one, the Impress. I think it's called the Impress, that die cutting machine, and it's tempting, let me tell you. But I've got a Big Shot. The old Big Shot never let me down. And then I've got this Spellbinders one with this, it's got a longer platform. It's really nice for die cutting longer things and more things at once. So, okay, we're going to go ahead and die cut a few more things. That middle-sized bloom is going to get die cut again out of Sunflower, which is also a new shade of yellow. It's kind of a cross between the old Buttercup and Clementine. It's like a nice little transition in there. And then we have Carnation, which is going to get die cut with that smallest bloom that I just die cut out of Tide Pool. Carnation is another new color, and I'm always down for a new pink. I love a good pink. You can never have too many shades of pink. And then we got more leaves out of avocado. Okay, let me tell you my story about avocado. I don't know if any of you guys are familiar. I'm sure you are, with Saturday Night Live. But there is a sketch on Saturday Night Live where they are kind of making fun of soap opera in California. And I'm sure it's very, very exaggerated. But in that little sketch, someone says, California avocados. And it just stuck with me forever. So now I can barely say avocado. I have to say avocado. So you might hear that a few times in this little video, and I apologize up front. But when something gets locked in the brain, it's avocado. It's California avocados. Okay, I think we have almost all of the little pieces die cut. We might need to do a few little centers for the blooms. Oh, and we need one more leaf out of, say it with me, avocado. Okay, trimming that out. I'm going to try to rein in the goofiness if I can, but hey, hopefully you're crafting along with me and you're too busy to care. But maybe you just wanted to watch. You're just sitting back, enjoying the ridiculous show. Um, yeah, okay, we're going to do some centers out of sunflower. There's also a few other centers that you can go ahead and die cut. I'll do it later, out of tide pool and out of dragon fruit. But again, this can all be customizable. However you want to add centers to your blooms. You can do it any color you want to do it. Or you could do it out of those delicious dewdrops. Embellishments make great centers for blooms. But I'm going to die cut some centers out of sunflower here, and one last leaf. I'm not going to say it, but you know the color. You'll never forget that color, believe me. By the time I'm done with it, you'll never want to hear it again. Okay, so scraping off the little sunflower centers, and we're going to get to adhering all these die cuts on that stitched floral background panel. But before I do, I am going to try to clean up just a smidge as I go. Because I'll tell you what, if I don't, I will lose something as sure as I'm sitting here today. I will lose it if I don't stick it back on that packaging. So if you're like me, tidy up a little bit as you go. Okay, now here's a fun thing. These blooms, it's like a puzzle. They fit right in with that stitched floral background. So you know exactly where it needs to go. You just figure it out. And then you can either pop this up with foam tape if you want to pop it up. If you want to use tape runner, I'm just using a little dab of liquid glue. I'm not like completely adhering it down. I like a little lift along the edges. Just a personal preference. You can do it however you prefer. Okay, so that first one, that dragon fruit, and then we have a clementine bloom. Again, just a little glue around the center, and you could definitely do a little foam tape here if you so desire. I mean, I'm never going to turn down a little dimension. Here's where it gets a little tricky. You got to figure out how that bloom, you might have to rotate it once, twice, 15 times until you find out where it just locks in. But it will lock in. Don't lose heart. And see how some of these die cuts overlap with the stamped blooms? Everything's kind of overlapping, hanging over one another. It's very organic, very forgiving. So again, don't worry about placement. You can always just overlap something if it doesn't fit perfectly. Okay, this last bloom here out of Tide Pool, you can put the adhesive on the die cut piece, or you could put the adhesive on the panel. Either way you go, potato, potato. We're going to glue that puppy down. Okay, we're moving right along. What are we going to do next? We are going to add some centers. Okay, this is a long video for me. I'm doing the voiceover because I cannot, I believe Kathy Zilski, she crafted while she talked. So she didn't have to like edit and do a voiceover. Whereas I have to do some editing and do a voiceover. One, because I cannot think and talk and craft at the same time. I can't do it. It's like patting your head and rubbing your belly. And then also, I fiddle and futz a lot of times, you know, and then I've got my dog Hank. He's always scratching at the door. So I've got a lot of interruptions is what I'm trying to say. So I'm adding a voiceover, and the point of my story is this video here is 21, almost 22 minutes long. And generally my card making videos are 5 minutes. So you can see how this is a stretch for me. And I'm probably going to fill it in with a lot of goofy stories just to fill in the space. But can we just take a moment? Can we just take a moment and appreciate that dragon fruit? You know, I asked Kathy Zilski and I, we've been talking here and there. And I said, do you have a favorite color out of all the colors? The new, the old, what's your favorite? And she said, probably dragon fruit or lemongrass. And she said, you? And I was like, same Z's. Exactly. It's lemongrass and dragon fruit all the way. And then we, I don't know if you've seen it yet, but we do some swatches. I made a few swatch, like there's a little set a die and a stamp, and you can make swatches out of these new colors. And so Kathy made 6 swatches and I made 6 swatches, and boy, did I ever have fun doing that. I mean, the colors together just light my fire. They really do. Okay, so I'm adding leaves. Now, the one fun thing about these leaves are they're slightly offset. So they're not like, the blooms, we kind of fit them right in like a puzzle piece with that stitching. But the leaves, we're not like going to fit those in. We're going to offset them. But if you want to fit them in, you can fit them in. If you want to offset them, you can offset them. You see like how you can just do whatever your heart desires right here. Now, I decided to kind of overlap my leaves just slightly, that the leaf would overlap with the bloom. I kind of like how it looks sometimes where it kind of just subtly overlaps with the bloom. But you can see on the back of the die packaging, the leaves are not really overlapping. So I kind of took a little bit of liberty here on this card. Sometimes you got to live on the edge is what I'm trying to say. Okay, last little leaf. You can see there's a lot of stuff hanging off the edges. We're going to cut off the excess. You can do this with scissors. I like to use my guillotine trimmer. I find when I use my guillotine trimmer, I get a sharp, crisp cut. If I try to do this with my scissors, I almost always get it wonky. I don't know what my deal is, but I just love to trim off excess. It's very satisfying to use the guillotine trimmer. It just is. I just love it. And I've got this little mini Tim Holtz guillotine. I've got the bigger one. Love them all. Okay, I forgot to add a few little centers to those stamped blooms. Completely forgot. So I'm adding that here, a little dab of liquid glue to pop on a few centers. Some are dragon fruit, some are sunflower, some are tide pool. You really can't go wrong. I don't know if I mentioned before, but I think it'd also be cute. You could use some of those dewdrops. You could use those in the centers of your blooms as well. That would be very fun. Now I had that was like a leftover piece that got cut off. This little leaf die cut. It was an extra. And I'm just going to add it over there on the left-hand side. I felt like it needed some green over on the left. Just felt like it. Going with the gut. Add it if you choose to. If not, no big deal. Okay, I'm going to create a card base using one of those long sheets of white cardstock that came in the kit. Scoring that at 4 1/4 with my beloved Teflon bone folder. And I'm going to flip. Okay, one thing I learned this from Christina Werner years ago. There was a debate on when you go to fold your scored card base. She says you got to fold with the bump in. And so that's always stuck with me. Bump in. Somehow she said it gets a better crease. I'm not sure. Okay, I'm using a little tape runner to adhere my panel onto this white card base. You could also use liquid glue, whatever type of adhesive toots your flute. Just make sure that it opens on the right. You ever made that mistake and have your card open on the wrong side? Been there, done that, got the t-shirt for it. Okay, we're moving on to the sentiment. So you're going to need another little panel of white cardstock. Again, I'm using my Misty. And this Big and Bold stamp set has several of these straight sentiments. Happy birthday, congratulations, you're the best. You could use any of those. I'm going to stick with happy birthday per the sample. And I'm going to stamp this with that VersaFine Onyx Black ink again. You could, it will look great here too if you want to emboss the sentiment in white onto black cardstock. That would really pop. But I'm going to stick with the sample, black on white. I'm going to clean my stamp as I go. I've got the new chamois. This is the Gina K stamp chamois. And very, very nice quality. Really enjoying my brand new Gina K stamp chamois. Okay, we're going to die cut this little sentiment. In the Big and Bold die set, there is a little banner die, perfectly sized for these sentiments. So I'm going to line that up and use some of that Easy C tape to hold it in place. Again, you could customize the sentiment. You know what else would be cool? If you embossed it in white on a shade of solid color cardstock. Or two-tone. You know what I like to do sometimes? Like say if you had dragon fruit, stamp it in dragon fruit. So like tone on tone. If you did Tide Pool, stamp it in Tide Pool onto Tide Pool cardstock. It's a beautiful combination, I'll tell you. When you want something kind of subtle, but you also want like the wow factor, tone on tone is the way to go. Okay, we're going to adhere this sentiment strip right onto our colorful bloom background. I'm going to use some foam tape for this because you know what I say. Dimension is life. Couldn't do a video without singing the famous Dimension jingle. I have these little foam squares by Simon Says Stamp, whatever type of foam adhesive that you like to use, or you could also just glue it flat down or tape runner, however you prefer. Little dimension never hurt anybody. And then I'm just going to try to center this and get it straight. A lot of times when I have a sentiment strip like this, I like to pull out my little T-square ruler to make sure that I am actually getting it straight. And this card is finished. There you have the happy birthday card featuring the big and bold stamps and dies along with the delicious new solid color cardstocks by Concord 9th. I hope you enjoyed this video and I will see you very soon in the next class. Hi everybody and welcome back. This next card we are going to be making is called the Spectrum Wreath card, and it's using 2 dies out of the Big and Bold die set. 2 dies is all you need, and just a spectrum of solid color cardstock goodness. So there's actually 2 dies. They are the same. They're identical, and that just allows you to die cut more at once. You know, make it go a little bit quicker. And then we have all these beautiful shades of solid color cardstock. We've got the Spectrum, and I mean, it's right up my rainbow loving alley. So I'll show you these 2 dies, see how they're identical, and we are just going to cut them out of each one of these shades, starting with Peony. I'm going to go ahead and just cut out just enough cardstock that's large enough for that die cut, and because I'm going to try to use every last sliver of this solid color cardstock, and I feel like if I just cut all the little pieces at once, then I have them cut and ready to go, and then you can just die cut. It's a lot of repetition. Some people might say that this is tedious, but it's actually one of my favorite things to do. I kind of just get in the zone, and you just repeat, and you rock and roll, you put on some music, and you just jam away and have a good time. Yeah, and I love it. Okay, so there's that lemongrass, which, by the way, is one of my favorite colors of all the Concord 9th colors. And then here's this one here. You might want to say it with me. Avocado. Great color. Now this is another one, Juniper. This is another new color that is just absolutely delightful, and it pairs perfectly with this next shade, Tide Pool. I feel like, I know they probably did this on purpose, but like all the shades have a little buddy. There's like a buddy system. So Tide Pool has Juniper, Lemongrass has Avocado, Dragon Fruit has Carnation. Blueberry, I'm not sure what Blueberry has. I'd have to look back on that chart. I don't have everything memorized. I just know it's in front of me. But last but not least, good old grape soda. You guys ever drink a grape soda? Years ago, and I'm talking when I was a little kid, I used to drink a grape soda now and then. I haven't drank one for years. But we're going to get to die cutting. Okay, so we've got the Dragon Fruit and the Carnation ready to go. So this is going to be like, if you have a manual die cutting machine, we're getting a good old upper body workout. We're burning some calories, and then we can have a cookie later. But maybe you have one of those electronic die cutting machines. I mean, then you're fancy schmancy is what you are. Okay, so we're going to just work our way through the Concord 9th rainbow. A lot of repetition. So we're going to have to fill in the time with some stories. How's everybody doing? Middle of March. What's the weather like where you're at? Here in Illinois, it's still pretty chilly, but it's starting to get sunny, a little more daylight in the day, which I appreciate. Today it was quite a bit sunnier, but still around 30, 40 degrees. Still a little bit chilly. I did recently buy myself. I treated myself. I don't know if you can call it a treat, but I bought myself a walking pad. Do you know what a walking pad is? It's like a very low profile, small, compact treadmill. It's portable. Like it's about 60 pounds, so it's not like super, but I could lift it into another room. It's got wheels on it. You could wheel it, and it's meant for walking. It's actually designed so that, have you seen how people can put like a walking pad under a standing desk? Some people like to stand when they work at a desk, and this way you could walk. And I don't have a standing desk, although I do stand when I craft, but I'm not sure that I could walk and craft. I don't know, maybe one of these days I'll test it out. But what I like to do is, I'm kind of a night owl. And a lot of times around 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock at night, I get bursts of energy, and I would like to just walk and like maybe put on Netflix and watch an episode of whatever and walk for an hour. And I've never been, because I get spooked really easily. I don't like to walk in the neighborhood when it's dark. And when it's cold too, I don't like it when it's too cold. My ears get cold, my face gets cold. But I do walk Hank, our dog. I walk him every morning, except when it's bitter cold. And but I figure if I could walk him in the morning and then maybe at night walk and watch a show, maybe I could get my life together. I don't know, but anyway, so I really have been enjoying this walking pad. Okay, now while we're in the mode of repetition, we're going to go ahead and die cut all those shades of solid color cardstock with these 2 rows of little mini blooms. They're also part of the big and bold die set. So there's 1 row of 2 and 1 row of 3. And I'm going to die cut all the same exact shades, starting with grape soda and working my way through the Concord 9th rainbow with the little blooms. Now these are all going to be used on the next 2 cards. So we're putting in all the work right now up front, and then we can party later. Okay, so we're back to repetition, back to story time. Okay, yeah, enjoying the walking pad. I've used it a couple nights in a row here. I just got it, so I really want to get in the habit of doing it. And then hockey season has officially ended, and you will not hear me complain about that. It was a lot of driving. It was all on me this year for my youngest. It was me and Emma. Took her to every hockey game in Chicago, St. Louis, and Springfield. Anyway, and my husband and my older 2 boys have been in Germany for this hockey season, and their seasons are over. They're going to be coming home very soon, and I'm looking forward to that. Although I got to admit, I have kind of enjoyed a little less responsibility lately. So it's going to be a bit of a wake-up call when everybody's home and hungry. Home and hungry. And so, but hockey season's over, and now guess what's starting now? Track season. So my youngest Emma, she's in 7th grade, and now this is her new. She's never been in track before. Junior high, it's when all the things start, all the fun, and she wants to do it all. I think she gets it from her dad. She's got that athletic DNA. I'm not sure. I was in the band. Okay, I did do cheerleading, but I was in the band. I did run track maybe 1 year. I'm not super competitive, but she is, and she wants to do all the things. She came home today and she's like, Mom, I tried the high jump for the first time, and she wants to do the sprints, wants to do the long distance, high jump, low jump, far jumps, short jump. I don't know what it all is, but she's going to try to do it. And then my oldest daughter, Alex, is finishing her senior year of college in Florence, Italy. So she's over there living her best Florence life. And then since my husband and my 2 older sons were in Germany, they just recently, last weekend, they drove down to Florence to visit Alex. It was about an 8-hour drive. They went down there, basically just ate their way through Florence. They had pizza, paninis, gelato. They saw Statue of David. They saw the big Duomo, this big, huge cathedral, and just all the fun Florence stuff. Alex, now here's a fun thing about this school she's at. They do a lot of little excursions, and they get cheap rates for the college age. College kids can't afford very much, but for spring break, she's going to Greece. And I was like, well, excuse me for living your best life. Wow, okay. And then Bailey, my other daughter, she did a semester this year in Germany. And so, I don't know what's up with this family, but they just have a hard time staying in the United States. But it's fun. We're making memories. Everybody will be home. And you know who's going to be the most excited about everyone being home? Is our dog, Hank. He misses the action. He misses all the cuddles and the hugs and the pets and the walks and the runs and the car rides. Because it's just been mostly me. And I try to do my best, but, you should see him when I get on that walking pad. He sits right next to it and just stares at me. Like, I don't know if he feels like I'm betraying him. Like, you should be walking me. I don't know. But he's very concerned. He's very protective of me. We're pretty tight. But, okay, so we're finishing up all those little blooms. Did that last little bit out of dragon fruit. Now I'm going to scoop these into a pile, and we're going to push those off to the side and save them for the next 2 cards. Actually, I'm going to pull out my little triangular embellishment tray and just scoop them right in there. Make you think that I've really got my life together. Okay, now moving on to the Spectrum wreath card. I'm going to create a card base. Took out one of the large half sheets of white cardstock. I scored it at 4 1/4 with my beloved Teflon bone folder. I got asked a couple times recently, what's my most favorite craft tool? And without a doubt, it was my Teflon bone folder. Okay, you probably got this little embellishment container tray thingamajiggy. Now, it is perfect for holding those delicious dewdrops, but we're also going to do dual purpose. We are going to use that. So here's the little dewdrops. I'm going to throw those in there later, but first I'm going to use it as a guide to draw a circle shape for our wreath. And I just so happen to have my C9 Summer Camp 2021 pencil handy. Yeah, I keep that in my drawer. So here's the thing about wreath. You want to do it dead center. You want to go a little bit high, a little bit low. I like to go dead center and just a smidge up. I don't know what that's called, but I call it dead center and a smidge up. And then I'm going to trace it with a pencil just lightly, and that'll be your guide to place your leaves around to make that perfect wreath formation. Little trick of the trade. Okay, so we're going to start adhering each one of these down. I'm going to use liquid glue. I have this Bearly Arts, which I like, that precision needle tip. Now, as far as gluing, you can do as much or as little as you prefer. I like to do just like half of it down the stem, because I like the ends to kind of lift up, get a little air, little dimension. But if you want to glue that puppy flat down, solid, secure as all get out, then you just do whatever tickles your fancy. Okay, so we did dragon fruit, we did carnation. Next is that grape soda. Now, as far as placement, you can't really go wrong, but I'm kind of, that outer leaf, I kind of line it up with, I don't know if you want to call that a little berry sprig, but I kind of line up the outer leaf with the previous little berry sprig. As long as you just stay consistent with each one, it doesn't really matter. Now, right about now is here where I made a little boo-boo. I don't know if you caught it yet, but I completely forgot to glue the blueberry die cut. I went right into the tide pool, forgot the blueberry. Didn't even realize it until I got to the end. But I'm going to stick it in. I'm going to shove that in. Don't you worry about it. Okay. We did juniper. We're doing avocado. And then one of my favorite colors next, lemongrass. I feel like lemongrass could almost be considered a neutral. It's like jeans. Any color can be paired with lemongrass. It's kind of like stardust. You know, the Concord 9th color stardust? I feel like it's a neutral. Can go with any color. That's how I feel about lemongrass. Now here we have sunflower. We're going to tuck this in. I'm taking my little retractable needle tool to lift up that dragon fruit. And you got to be delicate with these things. You got to be delicate with these intricate little die cut. It's kind of like you feel like you're doing surgery here. Tucking in the last clementine. And I've made a lot of wreaths in my day. I always say, have a leaf, make a wreath. Have a leaf, make a wreath. Love a good wreath. Look at how pretty that is. That's like candy for the eyes. Now here's the blueberry die cut that I completely forgot. And I'm going to just try to see if I can fit that in, if I can. Don't overthink it. I need to put a little glue in, obviously. Okay, so I put a little glue on the bottom half of that stem and just tuck it. Tuck it and hope for the best. It worked. It worked. It's not perfect, but we're going to go with it. Okay, now for a sentiment, we're going to make our own little sentiment flag banner thingamajiggy. Okay, so I pull up my paper trimmer. We're going to trim a little piece of scrap white cardstock to 1 inch wide. So if you have a trimmer, trim something to 1 inch wide, or you can use scissors. And then I'm going to do this to make it 1 3/4 inches long. Actually, on the instruction booklet, it says 1 inch wide by 1 5/8 inches long. I didn't have an 1/8 inch measurement on this little guillotine trimmer, so I did 3/4. Close enough. Now you're going to cut what they call a flag at the bottom with scissors. I call this a fishtail. You can call it a fishtail. You can call it a flag, tomato, tomato, potato, potato. So you just cut a little slit in the middle and then angle it up from both sides, and there you have a little flag banner for your sentiment. Now, as far as sentiments, we're going to pull out that big and bold stamp set, and there are a few different sentiments that could fit perfectly on this little strip. You've got the thank you, you've got the I love you, and the miss you. We're going to use miss you, but you can use any one of those that you prefer. I like that classic scripty font. It's the perfect size, not too big, not too small. I'm going to stamp it with my VersaFine Onyx Black ink. Use whatever black ink you prefer. Also, you know what you could do is emboss the sentiment. This would look spectacular embossed in white onto black cardstock. Love that bold contrast with a colorful wreath. I'm going to clean it off, try to clean as I go, and put this away. Now, don't be fooled. I'm not that neat and tidy. My craft room actually looks like a bomb went off, but I do, whenever I stamp something, I do try to clean it and put it away, mostly because if I don't, I will lose it. Okay, I'm going to use some foam tape on the back of this, pop it up a little bit right in the center of that wreath, and all that's left to do is embellish. My favorite part. Okay, so I'm going to pop this up right in the center. Such a cute little flag banner sentiment right in that wreath. Now, for the embellishments, we're using those delicious dewdrops. I decided to go ahead and pour those in that cute little circular container. And now I feel like I need to buy a bunch of these containers to pour all my embellishments. That was one of my New Year's resolutions, is to get my embellishments organized. And I did buy some little cheap trays for my drawers, and I have been attempting to organize all my little, I just have all my embellishments in those little teeny tiny Ziploc baggies that they come in, and I just I rifle and ruffle and rifle through my drawer whenever I need to use, but I have been starting to organize them in little bins. But this little circular container, it's kind of sort of making me feel like I have my life together. I'm enjoying the feeling. You know what I mean? Like, it feels like you know what you're doing. Do you have one of these embellishment wands too? I think this is by Studio Katia. That is a game changer. Now, here's one thing I like to do whenever I do embellishments. If I have a leaf, like I do with this wreath, and I'm not trying to wrap, but if I have a leaf, like I do with this wreath, or sometimes I like to hang the embellishment half off. Yeah, I like to hang it off the edge, or tuck it half under. I like to tuck it and hang it. I don't know why, but I do. So don't be afraid to hang your sequin or your dewdrop. Hang it half off the leaf. And that, my friends, is how you live on the edge and spice it up. It really is. Okay, so there you have the beautiful Spectrum wreath card using the big and bold dies and the stamp set. Make sure and tune in next for our last 2 Spectrum flower cards. Thanks so much for joining me. Hi everybody and welcome back. We are creating our final 2 Spectrum flower cards. We went ahead and die cut all those little blooms back when we were making the Spectrum wreath card using all that delicious solid color cardstock. So these are smaller little 4-bar note cards. So for the panel, we are going to cut these little panels to 3 inches wide, and then for the length 4 1/4. And this is going to be a little panel for the 4-bar card. So I'm going to do 2 of them, 3 inches wide by 4 1/4 inches tall. Okay, so there you have your little 4-bar panels. And then we have all our little die cut blooms that we did in the last video sitting in that cute little embellishment tray. Maybe you put them in a bowl. Maybe you just have them scooped into a pile. We're going to adhere these blooms in little rows. And in pure Laura Fedora fashion, of course, I knock the whole pile over and make a big old mess. Just classic Laura Fedora move right there. Okay, so we're going to start. One card, as you can see, is kind of like warm tones, and then the other card is cool tones. And so we're starting with carnation. Basically, each row gets 4 little blooms. And I'm trying to find that other little carnation bloom. I actually found it on the floor. Probably happened when I knocked the whole thing over. You ever lose a die cut? You lose it and you know you had it. And you look everywhere. You look under your grid mat. You look on the floor and you find it like in your pocket or something. Sometimes I go to bed and I find die cuts in places you wouldn't believe. Okay, I'm using some liquid glue to adhere each one of these little blooms down one at a time. I'm not really sure if there is a more efficient way. I thought about doing just a row of tape runner, but then you'd have that tape runner in the open bloom part. So that's why I just adhered each one individually. And now we have a row of grape soda. These rows of blooms are not precise or perfect. They're a little bit loosey-goosey, kind of fun, a little bit eclectic. Now, if you wanted to be super duper precise, you could draw like with a ruler or use your T-square ruler and make them super straight if you want that really precise look. But that's not really what I was going for here. So we have the row of grape soda, and then now what do we got? We got a row, my favorite color, passion fruit. Passion fruit is like a punch in the face, but in the best way. It's like a happy punch in the face. And yeah, like this, to a lot of people, this might seem tedious, gluing all of these blooms one by one in rows and rows. But to me, I find it oddly therapeutic, satisfying. I think really it comes down to the color, so it's fitting this class in the classroom color in the classroom, however it goes. Did you hear my jingle? I don't know if you've heard it. I shared it privately with Greg and Kathy about a week ago. Came to me in the bathroom. I don't know how, came out of the blue. I was fixing my hair and all of a sudden I thought, do you know that old song Karma Chameleon by Culture Club, Boy George? Karma, 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 chameleon. Came to me out of the blue. I was like, color, 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 color in the classroom. And it just stuck. Couldn't stop singing it. So I may or may not share the little jingle. Now, I made a chorus. I made a chorus for Color in the Classroom. And then Kathy took it a step further and made a verse. The girl can write a good old verse. I'll tell you that. She did. She sure did. Okay, so there we have our row of warm tone blooms. Now we're going to do another row of cool tone blooms. Kicking it off with blueberry. You guys ever put blueberries in your pancakes? My family loves that. I personally prefer my pancakes plain. Now, if you're one of those people who puts chocolate chips in your pancakes, I don't know what to say. That's just too much sweetness for me. Chocolate chips in the pancakes with that syrup, it's too much. but I do love a good homemade chocolate chip cookie. Love it. Love homemade. Homemade is the best. And sometimes in a weak moment at night, I have a recipe that makes like 3 cookies. I don't know how it does it. They're kind of large. But when my daughters are home and we're, we get at night and we get craving something sweet, I've been known to crank out a few chocolate chip cookies late at night. Put a scoop of vanilla ice cream on it. Man, does that ever hit the spot? Hit the spot. But I'll tell you, when everyone's home, I got to make like not a dozen cookies, but like double it up. Here's the thing. When I'm making cookies, my husband, he doesn't eat 1 or 2 or 3. I look the other way, and he's pounded 6. And you know what the most frustrating thing about it is? The man doesn't gain a pound. He's one of those freakishly motivated people that gets up every morning and like goes for a 5-mile run. Can eat whatever he wants. Chips, cookies, eat a bag. It doesn't matter. Have a burger, he never gains a pound. I'm like, I could look at a picture of French fries and gain 5 pounds. But here's the thing I've learned. The more you make, the more they eat. That's just how it goes. So I double up whenever I'm making a batch of cookies when everybody's home. But when everybody's not home, I'll maybe just make the 3. It's safer that way. Okay, so we're finishing. I get really off topic, and it usually has to do with food. Okay, rounding this out with a row of lemongrass blooms. And this is just a feast for the eyes. Candy for the eyes. These spectrum rows of flowers. And then now we're going to adhere these onto our card bases. So these are smaller little 4-bar card bases. So we're going to trim down our card bases. It's not 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. So for the large sheet, this is a half sheet. We'll trim it to 5 inches wide by 7 inches long. So I got to pull out my little arm here for my guillotine trimmer and measure that to 7 inches long. Do the second one, 5 inches wide by 7 inches long. And then we're going to score these puppies. So pulling out the scoreboard, and luckily this is an old scoreboard. It's an old Martha Stewart. Got it many years ago. I don't even know if you can buy these anymore, but I've been wanting to get the new Alta-New scoreboard. But this one, anyway, my point is it has a little notch there that says 4-bar, which is 3 1/2. And that's what I'm scoring these card bases at with my beloved Teflon bone folder. And then you always want to fold it with the bump in. That's what I learned from Christina Werner. For Christina says it, you just do it. Okay, so there you have your 4-bar card bases. And we're going to adhere our spectrum flower panels. I'm using tape runner. You could also pop these up with foam tape, however you like to do it. And just try to center it. Doesn't have to be perfect. This is just a cute little, these would be cute to make in a set. That would be an awful lot of die cutting. But it would be a cute little set of note cards to give as a gift, wouldn't it? Okay, so here's our warm tone spectrum flower card. Now, for the sentiment, we're going to do a little hugs die cut, which is from the Pretty Petals die set, which was the die set that Kathy Zilski used. And there's that cute little hugs word die right in there. It's got a scripty little font to it. We're going to die cut 2 hugs out of some black cardstock. Okay, so I'm peeling off that hugs die, and there was a little panel of black cardstock included in the kit. So you're going to want to get that out, get your die cutting machine ready, and we're going to die cut 2 hugs out of black. Now, if you wanted to, you could die cut a few more. You could stack them up to make it a nice dimensional word die cut. But for today, keeping it simple, we're just going to do 1 out of black. using my retractable needle tool to carefully remove that intricate word die. Second hugs coming at you. We gave the die cutting machine a pretty good workout in this big and bold class, if I do say so myself. So if you have a manual die cutting machine, I reckon you burned a few calories today. Okay, so we got our 2 little hugs die cuts. Now, one thing I like to do is give my die cuts a little once over with my retractable needle tool. I like to go around the edge and just smooth out any little bumps or any little stray little shreds of cardstock that might be hanging out. Little, like, it looks like little hairs around the edges, but it's cardstock. And just smooth it out. And it looks nicer that way. Okay, I'm doing liquid glue on the back. Don't need much. You don't want it oozing out the sides. And then carefully flip that over and just center it right underneath those pretty little rows of blooms. And you could do it high, you could do it low, wherever you want to put it. Just put it where it feels right. Okay, try to get it straight. And there you have a cute little, that Hugs is a cute little font. Okay, second one, some more liquid glue. It's kind of, I find it works good if you do little dots. So you try to do a stream of it. You run the risk of getting too much, and then it oozes out the sides and chaps your khakis. Okay, last one. We are just about finished. All that's left to do is add a few little embellishments. We're going to put some of those dewdrops in the centers of the blooms here and there, just randomly. Okay, so I've got my cute little container, and I'll take my embellishment wand and kind of place them first and figure out where I want them to go. So like each row, one of them will get a dewdrop. You don't want to overdo it, but you also don't want to underdo it. Don't want to underdo it, don't want to overdo it. Do you think it's possible to overdo it with embellishments? I mean, have you ever looked at someone's card and been like, wow, they used too many? I don't think I've ever thought that. I mean, sometimes I have thought, wow, I don't know why they put that where they put that. But I've never thought, wow, they put too many. So I don't think you can overdo it, especially with dewdrops. I don't know if you can. Okay, so we've got our last card here with the warm tones. I'm just picking one bloom in each row, putting a little dot of liquid glue, and then I'll take that embellishment wand and slap down a dewdrop. Now, some of the, I use like an array of sizes. Some get the larger dewdrop, some get the smaller dewdrop. You drop the dewdrop like it's hot. Okay, I'll be here all week. These 2 cards are just about finished. One last thing I noticed is on the previous cards to the left, they are slightly, ever so slightly zhuzhed. I don't know if you can see, some of the petals are a little bit lifted up, a little bit manipulated, and then my ones on the right that I just made are more flat. So what I'm going to do is take a little retractable needle tool, go in there on a few of the petals, not all of them, but here and there where you can, and just lift. And you'd be surprised that little bit of zhuzh, I call it the zhuzh. Zhuzh it like your life depended on it. It gives a little bit extra shadow, gives the card a little bit of interest, and it just, I don't know what it does, but that's why I call it the zhuzh. This needle tool works great for getting in there, getting in the nooks and crannies, here and there, with the clementine, with the sunflower. And there you have our final 2 projects from the Big and Bold class, in the classroom, Big and Bold, with Concord 9th. I hope you enjoyed all of these videos and making all of these projects. I hope you share what you make. I would love to see. And thank you so much for joining me.